Okay, so thank you again for joining me today. I want to kick off with, what does recruitment and career mean to you?
Yeah, I think now that I'm my own boss and I hire people, for me, recruitment and career very much is in the context of what it means to support my people in achieving their potential and ensuring that they enjoy being at work. And of course, for us, culture is a very core part of what we do and how we do it. So we hire based on the 4 values of Clearhead, which are collaboration, be a leader, inspire excellence, and of course, mana kitanga.
I think it's really heartening for a lot of people to hear that from that perspective of moving into, an awareness of your people and putting them really at the centre of all you do. Now, Clearhead is focused on ensuring equitable access to good mental well-being support for all New Zealanders. How do you think this focus can also positively impact business and individual career growth?
Yeah, so very much I think that if you look at organization as simply a group of people, then you're only as successful as the sum of your people. And we can often just focus on the superstars, but actually, if you lift the waka up for everyone through supporting them to better be equipped to whether it's the challenges that they're facing at work or outside of work, but they are bringing that to work, then we really lift the game for everybody else and have the fact that we spend a third of our lives at work a much more enjoyable experience for everyone.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about that superstar aspect. I'm from a background in sales, so that can be quite competitive in nature. Can you talk a little bit to that, maybe even about competition, but how that can be used in a healthy and positive ways to lift the rest of the team up, as you alluded to?
Yeah, I think that competition is a motivation as long as it is framed in a way that is healthy. And so the best person to compete with is yourself, because you never have the full picture of what it means to compete with someone else. So as long as an individual, I'm supported to continue to lift my game and not be done in a fear-based approach, but a strengths-based approach, then the organization will succeed and I will succeed. And the culture has to be very integral to allowing that to happen. And often culture is put in the perspective of this like wishy-washy thing. It's something soft and unmeasurable and invisible. And actually culture is a sum of what is going on with your people. And that's why it's so core to be measuring what's going on, because it gives you, in some ways, a map in which to navigate the uncharted waters versus trying to go in blind. And so we're a really big fan of data-driven decision making, and that's what Clearhead does to support the organizations we work with.
Yeah, that's a fantastic piece there. I was providing a mentoring session yesterday with an individual, and she was in a bit of a loop of comparison syndrome. And so we talked through this, and she had a bit of an aha moment, but that fundamental truth of competing with yourself and then turning up with your best version of you can do so much for your mental health, can't it?
Yeah, it's often we don't always get to bring our best version of ourselves for a whole bunch of reasons. Some of it is within our control, and that's the bit that we want to empower people to be able to work on. So building that mental resilience, building that capability that on things that you can control, and then supporting organizations to address the root causes outside of their control. If it's a situation due to workplace culture that does not allow you to bring your best self to work.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So mental health is really about how we feel. And you've touched on technology already. How does technology, data, and analytics also play a part to support organizations?
Yeah, I think the first is acknowledging that there is still stigma associated with mental health. We're definitely more progressive in terms of the conversation, but for majority of people, they do still see that they will be penalized if they are honest with what is going on, whether that means that they will be transferred to another department, whether that means that they will not be able to be given equal opportunity for promotion. So there are still real life consequences around disclosing that you are going through a tough time. And yet at the same time, 1 in 2 New Zealanders will face some level of mental health challenge during their lifetime. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So for something that's relatively universal, how do we continue to ensure that people provide open and authentic spaces in which people could be honest about where they're at, so that they can be supported through that period of time until they bounce back or until they've built the skills in which to deal with it. So until we get there, it is just as important to ensure that there's a pathway where people can safely and confidentially disclose what they're going through, have the support that is personalized to that issues provided to them in a timely manner, and have some of that information be aggregated if it's a systemic issue that can then be addressed by the workplace. So you can't do that without technology. Because really at the moment it's that online space that allows people to kind of feel that they can get that help without feeling that they're being judged.
Yeah, that's a really important part. I know in our intro call we touched on safe spaces, creating safe spaces, and I had that query around hierarchically that leaders might feel that they obviously have a little bit more space to be more authentic. We're seeing that online, but that might not trickle through the rest of the organization. So that's a really good example of being able to create an opportunity for everybody to share in those ways.
Yeah. It's just acknowledging that this will be a journey for the organization to get to, where you have a culture where people genuinely feel safe to share where they're at. But until that time occurs, you should still ensure there are safe spaces where people can immediately reach out and get the help that they need. And technology is a really scalable way to do it. In the context, especially of large organizations and organizations that have distributed or remote workers, where it's harder to check in with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched a bit on that too with the COVID fatigue. We're probably getting into more of those conversations a little later. I know you were also really excited to be able to announce how your team was working on building the government's new digital wellbeing website, Small Steps, in partnership with Te Hirangi Hauora, the Health Promotion Agency and Ministry of New Zealand. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, so equity has always been a core part of what it means to deliver personalized support to everyone, to us. And in the context that about more than 90% of people do have a smartphone, but less than 70% of people will have data on their phone. So the first thing when we looked at it is like, where in order to ensure that equitable access to care is available, you have to go to where people are. And smartphones is the most ubiquitous place in which that access can be provided. But to use tools like ours does require the internet. And so there still is a good proportion of people who don't have the internet easily accessible to them. So the partnership with,
Pleasure.
So the partnership with the Ministry of Health means that we can ensure that these tools that we've clinically designed that we know will help people is accessible to everyone, regardless of whether they have the internet or not. So So that means that what we have provided as support is truly equitably distributed. So that's kind of the bit that has made me the proudest of in terms of being able to work with the government. They did do a good market research to see who's out there who's doing the best in terms of delivery of digital tools, and landed on us. So it was a really proud moment for us to know that we've been benchmarked in that way.
Yeah, I mean, what a fantastic achievement and such a noble goal, and so many people that are in need and that just don't know where to go. So hoping to amplify this beyond those opportunities and get people speaking more about it as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So thank you for asking.
Recently, all Bumble and Badu offices closed for a week, and that was as a thank you to employees for their hard work and resilience to help with collective burnout from COVID, which we've touched on a little bit. Not all businesses have that luxury. So what ways can businesses create these safe spaces we talked about for people and reduce stigma around mental health discussions? So I know we already kind of touched on that earlier. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just, as we touched on before, when people need help to provide that to them. But then shifting away from just being that reactive, everyone's at the bottom of the cliff, to actually look at supporting your people in a more proactive manner. And one is, meeting them where they are. So increasingly post-COVID, the recognition that flexible working hours and is one way in which people can still perform and do their job, but fit it around the other commitments that are increasingly putting pressure on them to prioritize. So one is really seeing your people as individuals, and being able to provide them support when they need extra support, and recognize that we're not robots, so we're not always going to be highly productive all the time, but actually that there will be peaks and troughs, and giving us the space in which to work through them will actually overall create more productivity over time.
Yeah, that's that proactive approach. I think that's foremost for any organization, that they keep an eye out of people that they know, particularly organizations who have people in their teams that have been with them a while. We talked about this when we were doing a lot of video conferencing. There are changes in behavior that can be seen. People have different stresses at home. So yes, creating an opportunity to look out for them instead of waiting until someone's near their breaking point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So I also know you're working with Foodstuffs, huge organisation, very diverse workforce. Can you share how Clearhead is fit for purpose across that type of vast team?
Yeah, so we really come from an approach that is not a one-size-fits-all in terms of solutioning. And what makes us unique is that we really, the same way that we personalize the support to the individual employee reaching out for help, we personalize that delivery model to ensure that it's fit for purpose in terms of what is your employee base like. So there, in the case of Foodstuff, there is both a mixture of blue collar and white collar individuals that work in the office as well as working out on the ground. And so the way that they are going to be accessing information that supports their well-being also has to be delivered in different means in which to reach them. And also really building up different sources of trust that they can kind of reach out to, that doesn't have to be your HR manager and doesn't have to be Clearhead directly. So we really work to tailor and understand what is it that these organizations' workforce looks like, what's the channels in which that they are communicating with their staff, and then delivering solutions that is actually able to kind of meet people where they are again. And technology, again, is one way in which you can do that at scale that you might not be able to do one-on-one.
And what about training for that? Because people obviously have a variety of different technological experience and abilities. I know I worked in SaaS for a number of years, and I trained across things like accounting and legal publications and searches. And so there's a wide divide of accessibility. How do you deal with that in terms of working with an organization and then ensuring that these people are using your tools in the best way?
Yeah, the best way to do it is to design for the lowest common denominator.
Yes.
So when you look at the fact that you can put an iPad in front of a baby and it will immediately, through a few learning opportunities, know how to swipe. It wasn't like you put your baby through a training program to learn how to use the iPad. So there's a lot about core design that is about putting user interface at its most intuitive perspective. And so our tools are designed to be fun, they're designed to be quick to use and easy to kind of digest that information. So, like the literacy of our content is at the, of a reading age of 12. So we really thought about what it means to provide information in a way that is easily consumable for really the broadest subsection of society. So a lot of it comes down to design and deliberately designing to ensure that it is easy to pick up and easy to understand.
Yeah, that will be music to the ears of a lot of my UX and UI designer friends. But also what I wanted to do is break down that potential barrier. Some people hear the word technology or app and they are not aligned to the opportunities that they can provide. So I'm really glad that you were able to share that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, there will be some people who won't have a smartphone. And so for that group of people, we still provide an offline option where we have a therapist network that's more than 200 across the country. And for the people who need that help, just to give us a call and we can place them to the right therapist. So, it's acknowledging that like not everybody will use digital as their first port of call and that they will need alternatives. And so we've really thought about the solution of supporting your organization in a very comprehensive way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that really shows that you can be fit for any size. On top of all of the amazing introduction pieces, you have also been a finalist for the 2017 Young New Zealander of the Year Award, and you featured in the University of Auckland's 40 Under 40 twice, both in 2017 and 2020. You've spoken about how you always knew you weren't book smart and you had to work hard for your grades, which for someone like me is also very inspiring. What gave you that determination to persevere and succeed, and how do you think others can find that?
Yeah, a lot of it is a personality trait. So I don't like giving up. And so that was an inherent part of my personality. But one of the things that I did learn is reframing what it means to think about failure. So for me now, failure does not mean that I'm a bad person or that I am stupid. For me, being unsuccessful at something just means it's not right now, but here's what you can learn so that you can try again. So I'm a big believer of trying again once you can, and taking the opportunity to reflect what is this the lesson that you can learn from this experience. So I think that's the main thing is that what differentiates me from any of these impressive role models that you have in your life is actually just sheer grit to not give up, and tapping and finding something that will help you not give up. So for me, I can share with you, running the startup is incredibly hard. I always say that I would. I always say that I would. I always say that I would not wish it on my worst enemy. But on the days where I'm like, the grind is wearing me down, why am I doing this? It is just constantly remembering that, that I really care about ensuring that people get the help that that access to care is a universal right that everybody deserves, and our systems are not set up to enable that to happen. And I'm not willing to be on the sidelines, and poking holes at the problem and not provide a solution. So, so I always kind of keep trying to recenter myself to my why. And that takes time. So again, it's, first tap inside yourself something that will not let you give up. And then usually that comes down to like what your why is. And it does take time to figure out what that is. So a lot of self-work around finding your identity and finding your purpose. But I can assure you that it is worth doing it if you take the time.
It absolutely is. And I think that's a really nice reminder about the fail does not mean that it's I always think it's not a no forever, particularly with the sales mindset that I have. Can be a no today. It's not a no forever. And circumstances change and you grow and develop as well. So that's a fantastic answer. What's been a noteworthy challenge or success for you personally when recruiting for your business?
Yeah. For me now, it's recruiting people who live by the values that I mentioned before. And looking beyond sort of what's glossy on the CV to actually personality traits that allows you to work well with that person, and that they are coachable, and that they have a growth mindset rather than tell me what to do. They want to take ownership. They want to achieve their personal best, and do it in a meaningful way. And I think that it's not very easy to find these kind of people. And so for us, we have a team of 8 FTEs, and I would say hand on heart, I love every single one of them because they are so amazing in their own right, and all very unique and bring a diversity of thought, and everybody feels that they can contribute. And to me, that is success. To me, success is that I have my staff tell me that I've been a good boss, but I've been a better friend, and that to me means that, I am not doing something where it's a win at all costs. It's actually I'm there for the right reason, but I'm going to get there the right way as well. And there are many times when you are making decisions where you will be asked to make decisions where your morality will be questioned, and you can take the easy way out, or you can do the right thing. And that is when your true integrity is tested on what you pick. And we hope that the actions that you see that Clearhead kind of manifest is something that will stand the test of time and will demonstrate that we were on the right side of history.
Yeah, it's so important. And it's heartening to hear organizations that are embracing that, aligned with the values that they have nicely written up on the wall. That's fantastic. But are you walking them every day? And not a lot can authentically say yes. And we were speaking about this dominance piece that has been rewarded in a lot of leadership organizations. And it's funny you say the win at all cost. I had a past manager and we'd go out on sales meetings and he would literally turn to me and say, "No one gets out alive." I would turn to him and say, "Everyone gets out alive, okay?"
Exactly.
I've always been you put your best foot forward, you authentically and passionately try to display the value you can add and the alignment that you feel there is, and you try and build something together. And it's just so great to hear. I'm sure your team back in the office will just be like, oh, she loves us. And that's when magic happens. I've been in teams where literally we would walk in every morning and hug each other. And that's just the type of humans and the type of environment that I want to be a part of and continue to add to. And it's why I think it's important that people hear that it's not, that's not a weird thing. This is business, but it's also like work is so much of our life, as you said.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that you talked about dominant leadership, but another way to phrase it is masculinity in leadership. And I think that's kind of what the argument is, to see more women in leadership position. And we bring a level of empathy that allows humans to bring themselves to work, and rather than just numbers or on a piece of paper. And also part of having a slightly more feminine approach is also being able to not be the one to claim the credit. I will always say that the success of Clearhead today is like majority because of my team. I'm the one that's like the public face, but I hold a minority of the reason of why we are where we are today.
Yeah, it does. It's just a fantastic model of leadership that I am so proud to see you speaking about and advocating for, because it's one that I've certainly encouraged and nurtured throughout my own career and try to support others with too. So it's amazing work. Okay, you've also said you want to be someone who contributes to creating the future. What shape do you think we're in now, and what makes you hopeful?
Yeah, my domain expertise is in healthcare. And compared to other sectors, healthcare is only now post-COVID recognizing the need to embrace technology. But often when we have discussion around embracing technology, has been around incremental improvement or just digitizing what we're doing now. And I genuinely believe that there is an opportunity to completely transform and leapfrog how things have been done with emerging technology like AI. And so Clearhead is a very visible manifestation of what it means to practice what we preach in terms of co-design, in terms of consumer-centric care, in terms of convenience and choice and control and all that kind of stuff, actually manifesting in the product that you see and the user journey that you have with us. And so even though healthcare is behind a lot of sectors in terms of the way they put the patient in the center, and we genuinely believe that it also means that it has the biggest opportunity for change.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm very excited about being able to be on the forefront of.
Yeah, we're excited to see it. So I know we went a little bit into this with the team piece, but what does being whole, human, imperfect, and real mean to you?
I think for me it means that we celebrate our success, but it also means that it's okay when we make mistakes, to kind of be able to share that and then ask for help or be supported. I think that as a leader, we often feel compelled to be perfect and only show the side of us that is always amazing and rah-rah, but there is a lot of power that comes from being in a leadership position. And if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and be able to show that you do have off days, and you are human, and that you do get sad and disappointed when things don't go the way that you expect to. You give your staff permission to do that as well, and that's also in the context of mental health. The reason why it's important to have advocates in organizations to share their story, share what they've gone through, but also where they're at now in terms of coming out the other side, building resilience, building strength, is you give permission for others, and you give people hope that like what they're going through, they're not suffering alone. And to me, that has always just been very important. And often when I kind of, on the outside, Clearhead looks like it's doing amazing. And so we often have lots of people come up to us and be like, oh, can you tell us, how you achieve what you've achieved? And always more than happy to share, but I'm always really honest around like all the things that we are struggling with.
It's hard.
Yeah, I think that like, I want to not glamorize entrepreneurship because it's like, because then when it is hard, then you think that you're the failure, not that the fact that the game is hard. And so I think that for me is what it means to be whole and human, is to not buy the bullshit around that we have to have this Instagram perfect life. I'm always very real around sharing the challenges that I'm experiencing, both personally and professionally, as a way of reminding that people that I may have a glossy, external facing role, but I'm also very human in trying to manage all of that.
Yeah, it is important. I remember mentoring a person, and she'd been following me on Instagram and listens to the podcast, and she's just like, you've got this life. And I'm like, I really don't, honey. like I do post some of the challenges as well, but sometimes I think, it's that human nature thing of I'm only going to see everything that looks so much better than what's in my environment. So it's great that you do try and give people those warnings. Not that they're always heard, I know, but all we can do is keep advocating for that, right?
That's true.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned over your career and with the pivots? And what change, if any, have you made from them?
The biggest lesson I've learned is around letting go of control. I think that as women, we can often feel like we have to be 110% better than the next person in order to be given the opportunity. And, the diversity rates in leadership gives credit to why we would feel the way that we do. And so we can then therefore feel that we need to be in control all the time to achieve this like 110% effort. But what I've learned that has been a hard lesson to learn, but an important one, is to recognize the importance of that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And I have always played the long-term game in terms of making decisions around the company, around the sort of vision that we have of like ensuring that personalized support is available to everyone. That meant that like I needed to be able to step back and just let myself recognize that I've hired an amazing team and to let them really flourish without me having to tell them how to do it. So I had to really be self-aware around my personality in order to ensure that I'm getting the best out of everyone and that it's an enjoyable ride. It's hard though.
It is hard, particularly when you do such a great job in so many ways yourself. But I completely appreciate that people do need to have room and space to be able to grow. And as much as you spoke to some of those failures yourself, you did learn from them, and that's going to be the case for every staff member you have. But that's a fantastic lesson to be able to continue to learn from and develop your team through. into a bit of a candidate-driven market for a number of industries. But the people that are looking for jobs, some of them have been doing that for a little while, and there's a little bit of a slog and grind going on for them. So what's a piece of advice you would give to job hunters or those that aren't happy in their current jobs, struggling with their mental health right now?
Yeah. So the same way that you would not tell a person to go and go for a run after they have when they're having a heart attack.
Yes.
I really want to encourage people to think about building that, filling their cup up consistently with discipline, even on days that they don't feel like it, is really important, because when that moment comes, when you're starting to have that panic attack or that crisis, or you're feeling super low and you just don't know how to get out of it, that's when you tap into the things that you do consistently. So you won't tap into them if you've never done them before. So I think that the main thing around your mental health is investing in it regularly and proactively. Don't wait for it to be a crisis. So I think that's the main thing. In terms of your other comment around sort of the candidate market in terms of searching for a job, I think it's recognizing about where society is and what the future of work looks like. There's incredible amount of uncertainty and flux and change, and especially for older individuals, a lot of what the skill sets are required today, you would not have been trained in when you graduated from university. So the most important thing is to have a learner's mindset. Never stop learning, constantly be devouring books where you can understand where the sector of interest is going, build skills. There's so much free online learning tools out there that you can learn and build a basic ground on. And that really, I think, is what employers should be looking at, which is that does the person have an appetite to learn, an ability to be coached, an interest and passion in the area, and shows initiative, so through side projects and stuff. So you might want to get into a particular field, or you want to get into a particular role, but you've just, don't wait for like the whole catch-22, oh, you don't have work experience in this space. Like, go and do that side project that gives you experience. And it might be a sideways step, and it might not be exactly the perfect role when you transition, but like, it's just, one door opens the other, and just recognize that you might have to take even a step back or a sideways step before you can kind of transition to what you really want to be doing. But I can assure you that if you work towards what fills your cup, what gives you purpose and meaning, it would automatically also fill your mental health up in terms of your well-being from that perspective. So it is definitely worth making that transition, even if it's going to be a slow one.
I don't know why, but I just had this image in my head when you were speaking about, ensuring that you're doing little pieces at a time and not waiting until everything breaks. And I had this image of a teaspoon can put out a candle, but it can't put out a house fire. So I think a teaspoon of water can put out a candle, but it can't put out a house fire. But if you're doing these things and paying attention and not letting it get out of hand, that's really important. But that structure piece too, so many people do speak to that, having a purpose of the learning. Yeah. And we've come to the end. So I've got one more question is there anything else you'd like to share, or last words that you could leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have a very strong social mission of wanting to impact and provide support to as many people as possible. So this is really a call out to any organization that wants to better support their people and don't know how. Please reach out to us. We help small and large organizations. The most important thing is that there's a willingness to kind of do things differently and truly put your people at the center. And we will support you through data. We will support you with smart technology, and we will support you with systemic culture change. So reach out to us, and we'd love to help.
Yeah, don't just have the writing on the wall. Let's actually put some action towards it. Clearhead can help.
Yeah, absolutely.